Hey everyone, welcome to Kempner Sports. I know you're going to be shocked. I'm putting out content like I'm Justin Bieber putting out new albums. Okay, I don't know, that's awful, but he's Canadian and we're Canadian, so somehow that matters.
Do they even call them albums anymore, you dinosaur?
My friend Rob, and now get this, I may have been calling you the wrong last name for all of the years I've known you. I have said Peccal, but it's not. That's wrong, right? It's Peck.
Wow. We had this conversation like 20 years ago, and you still didn't care enough to get my name right. But now all of a sudden, you want to get it's Petka. But you know what? My kids say pet cow, so whatever.
Yeah, great to have you. Today I'm super thrilled to not only connect with Rob, but for everyone else to hear him. I've been thinking about for a long time having a Flames fan come in and just kind of talk about rivalry, talk about stuff. And there's no better time than now with two of the biggest names in Vancouver Canucks who have landed in Calgary. So, but first of all, Rob and I, just like Jeff and I had met in college, actually we all met in college, started friendships there and we both had worked on Vancouver Island together and had seen each other at different events that we were at. And so it's been a cool thing to have friendship. But now you're in Alberta. I'm still in BC. When I moved to the Okanagan, which is BC for those people that don't know, I couldn't believe during playoff time how many Calgary Flames flags were flying in the Okanagan, because all the people retire from Alberta to Okanagan because evidently BC's better. And they would buy their properties and then they would celebrate the Flames. And I have so many Flames friends. In fact, I think this video is going to blow up because of how many Flames friends I have.
It must be hard for you.
I love my friends.
I know what that's like. I was like the only Flames fan in college, and all you Vancouver fans, it was a nightmare. It was horrible.
No, and I feel your pain, kind of. So I've really enjoyed our friendship. I've really enjoyed our interaction back and forth. I like hearing different perspectives. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I'm not a fan of the Flames, but I respect their fan base. I respect their organization, and I think they've done a very good job of building a very solid team over the years. And so I wanted to ask you, first off, what is your opinion of the Vancouver Canucks?
Oh, wow.
And I'm not just talking about this season, like in general, like.
Okay, first I'll get my existential crisis out of the way, because as a rival, I have a hard time in any way cheering for the other team. I mean, primarily Edmonton is the enemy, but Vancouver is not that far behind. But when Michael Furland, who was one of my favorite Flames of the last decade, goes to Vancouver, I still follow him on social media. I'm still interested in him. I can't help but cheer and hope that he does well, even though he's wearing a Vancouver uniform. So that was tough for me. Having said that, I think I was as surprised as everybody how Vancouver pulled themselves up out of the basement over the last 2 years and has had such a solid showing recently. Like, it doesn't seem like anybody saw that coming. I don't know from a Vancouver market whether that's the case. But, they kind of had I think it was what would appear to be a no-name coach and some solid talent, but not enough to really put a team into the playoffs until you had the goaltending picture and a little more scoring touch, a little more balance, a little more toughness. They got JT Miller, and all of a sudden they're a team. It kind of surprised me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've been watching them closely, so there's been a lot to be excited about over the last number of years. But it's funny because the Battle of Alberta is so massive, right? And it's so deeply rooted, especially in us that have grown up watching that. It's funny how different teams have different rivals. For example, Vancouver fans hate everybody. I'm going to do a video on this later, but
sure,
they hate everybody. But for me, there's a couple teams I dislike the most. I dislike number one Calgary, and I'm so sorry,
that's okay.
Say that.
As long as your number two is Anaheim,
right? For us, it's never Anaheim, right?
No.
So we could care less about Anaheim, but here's the thing, and I know this is going to come across super rude, so please forgive me before.
I'm not surprised. I know you, bro.
I would love it if Calgary went 0-82. Like, I don't know what it is. It's that you guys are my rival. Now you don't. I'm not even your rival. Would you feel that way about Edmonton?
Okay, yeah, but Edmonton Calgary rivalry had been flatlined for years until recently with Matthew Tkachuk, and all the nonsense, all the awesomeness. Yeah, it had been nowhere. Vancouver Calgary had been more of a rivalry over the last 5 or 6 years, I would say.
Okay. And next ones I dislike is Boston after that. So
interesting. Yeah, not surprised there.
Well, we lost to them in the finals, right?
Yep.
So anyways. Yep. Okay, so first things first, let's just dive right into it. Free agency, Vancouver's all excited. We're going to be going after Markstrom. We're going after Tanev, Toffoli. We're hoping maybe we could even still land Stetcher. Next thing you know, 2 days before the free agency opens up, it looks like the talks are shaking down with Markstrom. They're not going well. Other teams are interested: Edmonton, Calgary, Detroit. And I'm like, whoa. Not only is this worst case scenario that we're not going to be landing our MVP for the last 2 years, he's going to be going to a division rival who we are going to see. And I actually thought he was going to end up in Edmonton because, there's that McDavid factor and Draisaitl, but it switched, and they were really cap friendly, like cap pressured, right?
I heard Edmonton offered him more money.
Wow.
I heard Edmonton offered him more money. He turned them down. They offered Holtby more money. Both of them signed where they did for less than Edmonton offered them, from what I hear. They didn't want to go ahead, and then they signed Mike Smith as a second backup plan. And Edmonton fans are flipping out right now. They are
okay. I see. This is why I bring in the big guns here, boys and girls. Wow. Okay. So
I'm not saying that's true. That's just what I hear.
Okay, so let's dive into that. Not that, but the Markstrom. Okay, so Markstrom lands in Calgary. I want to get your reaction. What do you think about you landing Markstrom and Tanev? But let's start with Markstrom.
Yeah. Well, first of all, this is new for you, I think, but we went through this 2 years ago with all of a sudden ex-Oilers landing in Calgary. It was 2 years ago. We got Talbot, we got Lucic, and we got can't remember the third guy. All of a sudden, it was like I was joking with my buddy in Edmonton, like Calgary looked like more like the Edmonton Oilers in training camp than the Edmonton Oilers did. And that was, for us, that was weird. It's like, whoa, these guys used to be the enemy, and all of a sudden now they're on our team. So this is like, okay, we've been through this before. These guys were Vancouver Canucks, and all of a sudden they're Calgary. The leadership saw something that they liked, and they went after it. And Calgary's front office has been really sharp the last few years. They've generally gotten what they wanted, which tells me that there's a really, really good culture in Calgary, and that somehow the players want to play here. Which, so having said that, I was a bit surprised when they signed Markstrom. But as I started looking at it, I realized, he's probably a better goalie than I was giving him credit for. Sure, he carried a lot of the weight in Vancouver, but in terms of what else is out there, he's sharp. He's at the top of his game. He really was the best option on the market, and it's pretty cool that Calgary landed the best option on the market.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, and then Tanev. Do you know a lot about Tanev? Because he kind of seems to me like the guy that you're going to love.
Okay. Well, I'll give you my opinion on Tanev, and can I mix in TJ Brody because I think it's tied here?
Yes.
I've not been a fan of TJ Brody for a number of years, and everybody that I connect with in Calgary here is opposite of me on that. Part of that is because I like a much tougher style of hockey. That's probably the understatement of the century. My favorite Calgary-Vancouver game of recent memory, including the one that I was at where Sam Bennett scored in the third period to give Calgary the come-from-behind win. I liked the McGrattan, Westgarth, Bob Hartley sending them out in the first face-off brawl. Like, that was awesome. I loved that. So where was I going with this? Okay, having said that,
Brody
I was not a fan of TJ Brody. So I think it's good that they got him because Calgary's got a lot of mobile, offensive, young defensemen coming up. My assessment of Tanev, and I don't really know a whole lot about him, I saw him as a guy that can carry a lot of minutes and super dependable. Like, he's not going to let you down. He's not going to cough up the puck. And I think that was the knock against Brody, is he had the upside, but he tended to cough out the puck. You know, when he was on, but he just didn't seem to be competitive half the time, in my opinion. The numbers were there. You know, he looked great on paper. So, you know, I look. A lot of people are looking at it as a downgrade on defense for Calgary. I don't see it that way. I think if they're more dependable defensively, they've got the offensive talent from the blue line coming up. They've got Rasmus Andersson, who is awesome, very impressive. They got Juuso Välimäki. If he's healthy, he's ready to go. And that right there, in my mind, more than replaces for the TJ Brody offense.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Well, let me tell you a couple things about Tanev that I think is going to get you excited. Number one, he's a warrior. Good. He's a playoff guy in the way of he blocks shots. He does all the gritty work. He's defensive. He is solid in so many ways. I think you're really, really going to enjoy his style of play. But the knock on Tanev for me is his health.
Okay.
Now, when he's been, him and Edler were the number 1 and number 2 defensemen on our team, and it was like they both couldn't handle the load. So they were always getting injured. In fact, we would joke around that they're glass. Now, they weren't. They just played really tough minutes, lots of minutes, blocking shots like you wouldn't believe, right? Especially Tanev. But in saying that, now that we had other defensemen that we brought in with Hughes getting drafted and with Myers, it took the pressure off them being the top end guys, and they had healthy years. So I'm thinking if you and then we know that Calgary does have that's probably why Markstrom ended up going to Calgary, is because you had a better defensive core than Edmonton.
That's what I thought. That was my first guess. Edmonton's defense is full of holes.
Right. The only thing that I'm nervous about, and like to me, I think you landed 2 really great players, and your team's already solid. So I think this like elevates your team. Okay.
I hope so.
Especially the Markstrom piece. Like I've watched Markstrom for many years, and he's lived up to the hype. He's Vezina Trophy candidate.
Well, they locked him in for 5 years, and he's what, 35, right?
6.
No, 6 years, and he's 32 or 31 now?
He's 30. Let me just see. I got it right here. Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought he was like 31.
30 years old, 6 years. Yeah.
Okay, so that is a pretty big statement right there. If you're going to lock up a 30-year-old goalie for 6 years, you got to really believe in him, I would say, right?
Yeah. So I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised because, frankly, Calgary's needed goaltending. You guys have been weak in goaltending for a number of years, right? Like you've had Mike Smith and
I don't think the goaltending's been all that bad. We had a pretty good year with Riddick and Talbot, and the year before, it was a little disappointment with Smith, but it was better in the last 2 years than it had been in the previous 4. But I think what they're looking for is a lot more stability, because there's been a big question: who's the number one? Who's the number one? Who's the number one? That's been an ongoing thing. The idea now is I don't think there's going to be any doubt who the number one is going forward. So then your idea is then you plan for a solid backup and to take the minutes off the number one, but you rely on a number one. That's been a big question mark.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're gonna love that. I think you're gonna really enjoy watching hockey this year because of this.
Now, obviously, now we have so many Swedes on Calgary.
I know, but let's be honest. The world has gotten better, right? Okay, let's digress just for a second. Right. Something you might find very interesting. Okay. There's 2 things that I'm really frustrated with over the years in drafting. Well, not 2. There's many. Number 1, why didn't we draft Nedved or Jagr instead of Nedved? Okay.
Nedved. How old are you?
Yeah. No. Exactly. So that bothers me still to this day. Right. Another thing that Jeff and I talked about was that I wanted Matthew Tkachuk and we drafted Ulevy instead. I'm angry about that. Okay, but get this. In 1973, the Vancouver Canucks picked 3rd, and the Toronto Maple Leafs picked 4th. And Lanny McDonald gets drafted to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Why did we not draft him? But whatever. Okay, so this stuff matters, and we a draft happens and it takes 2 to 3 years. Guys get on the team and blah blah blah, and we forget. But now we're like, I wish we had done that. Right? There was a year. Who was? Oh, was it Monahan? Was it Horvat and Monahan went like it was crazy. There were some real incredible players that were going in drafts, and it was Calgary and Vancouver were always neck and neck in those things. You know,
I think what I've noticed, and going back a few years in Calgary's general manager issues and making all kinds of deals that I really, really did not like. Recently, last few years with True Living, it seems like Calgary is drafting, of course, I'm reading into this, chemistry and intangibles. They're looking for compete factor. They're looking for how is this guy going to fit in with the team and the community? Is he going to love playing here? Because if you've got a good player who loves playing for a city, you're probably going to get more out of him than you get out of a great player who's not really sure about his situation, right? He's going to be a peak performer because he loves being there. So they've actually built this culture that this team where the players want to play for each other. They want to play in this city, and it's showing on the ice. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think they're drafting for that. They're drafting for players they think can fit, not necessarily guys who stand out on the stats sheet as much. And that's just a theory, but it seems to be playing out. I mean, that was definitely the Tkachuk thing. Is that everybody's looking around going, "Why did he go to Calgary? He could have gone." Yeah. I think there's two Vancouver. Or three teams passed up.
I think Vancouver drafted 5, and Ulevy or Matthew Tkachuk went 6. Like that.
Yeah, but Edmonton drafted. Who did they take before Tkachuk?
Oh, they've messed up in the draft.
Oh yeah, let's talk about Edmonton draft.
Yeah, we'll be here all night.
Well, somebody pointed out that Taylor Hall, with the Coyotes' playoff win in the bubble in Edmonton, has won more playoff games than Edmonton has since they let him go.
Oh my goodness, that's awful. Yeah. But
it's awesome out here, man.
Okay, so I think that the Flames, as much as like I'm not a fan, and there are rivals, I think people have forgotten about Calgary. And what I mean by this is 2 years ago, you guys were number 1 in the West.
Yep.
Now, let's not talk about that playoffs.
I predicted that playoff tanking, by the way.
Really?
I was the only one that called it. I hated that year because Calgary played soft. They weren't hitting. They were playing like a 90s Detroit team, which they're playing the hockey that I hate. And that can't win in the playoffs. And teams are finally figuring that out. That what wins in the regular season and what wins in the playoffs are two completely different styles of hockey. Mm-hmm. And I love playoff hockey. It's violent. It's competitive. But the Flames were not playing that way. And I don't think you can just switch it on. And sure enough, they had one good game and then. So I feel very proud of myself that I called that. And that was, even though they won a lot that year, I didn't have any fun watching the games. It was so sad.
Yeah. Yeah. What I'm making the point is that people have forgotten about Calgary. And then they go and get an upgrade at goaltender. And according to you, you're getting an upgrade at defense. So that's massive.
Yep.
You know, I think the only thing I'm not sure about is your offense. So Tkachuk's great. Johnny Gaudreau, Johnny Hockey, he's super skilled, but he seems to me like that when the playoffs happen and the physical play happens, he really struggles.
I don't think he struggles in the playoffs per se. I think he's just more hit and miss. And I think teams have learned how to systematically coach against him. So when teams want to shut down Calgary, they generally know how to shut down Johnny Gaudreau, and he's become a little predictable. You don't see that as much in the regular season, but you do more in the playoffs. When you're seeing the same team night after night, they've got him figured out. And I think until he breaks out of that a little bit, I think that's probably going to be the knock against him. I don't know if he's going to be a playoff performer until he figures that out. That's my opinion.
Okay, and then Monahan's a playoff guy.
Yeah, he's solid. He's what you need him. He's an all-around player, and he rises to the pressure, and I think he's just going to get better with age.
Yeah. Jeff was trying to compare Bo Horvat to Jonathan Taves, which I thought was a real stretch. In fact, I've seen some brilliant moves by Horvat in this playoffs that was like, wow, I didn't know he could do that. He went to another level. He's like Kessler back in our playoff run. But when I think of Monahan, I think of that's the kind of player like the Horvat, the Monahan. They can score, they can hit, they can They can lead. They can win face-offs. They're gritty. That's the kind of player you need to win playoff games, you know?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Horvat's probably more that role than Monahan is. I think what you just described is a little bit more Sam Bennett, who I'm a big fan of. He's more versatile in the playoffs. He's more gritty, and Monahan definitely is a classic center. I see Monahan as potentially in the vein of Joe Sakic. Will he ever be that great? Time will tell. Probably not. But he's that type of intelligent center, more than a gut it out, get it done. Put the team on your back and lead. That's more. That, like you see it in Horvat, see that a little bit in Sam Bennett.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. Like, if he turns into Joe Sakic, you're gonna have a parade on your hands.
Well, when Johnny and Monty are doing their thing, it's interesting because they flip the classic center role. Monahan's putting the puck in the net, and Johnny's making the plays. And when they're on, that seems to be the pattern. When they revert and they're trying to get the puck to Johnny to put in the net, it's just this year anyways, it wasn't happening.
So after all these, things, your team was already solid. Now you've improved your goaltending. You potentially have improved an even stronger defensive core. Do you feel like Calgary now is a contender? Not saying that they're going to win the cup, but do you think they're a contender? Do they make the playoffs? Do they make noise? How are you feeling as a fan?
I feel pretty good, but I think the big question mark is at the coaching position. They rolled the dice on Ward and made him not the interim coach, but the head coach. And I think they're banking on keeping the band together. And this year is going to be a huge pressure year. I think if they don't do well this year, you can see a whole blow up. I think the expectations have been high since they finished so high in the standings, 2 years ago. So, I think if the coach ends up going this year, I think you're also going to see Johnny go somewhere. They're going to move him while he's still valuable. That would constitute a blow up. You move Johnny Gaudreau. So
right, yeah, they move some big pieces and probably get some big things in return. Okay, so funny, as I was looking at, you lost Talbot, you lost Brody, some of these guys, but there was a poll and it said, do you like what the Flames have done so far this offseason? Yes, no, or unsure. So I'm like, I'm going to get into this. I like what they've done. So I clicked on it. I'm not a Flames fan, but 63% said yes, 15% said no, and 22% said unsure. And I was shocked by that. Like, I thought for sure it'd be 80% saying yes.
Well, I think you're probably you're tipping on the unknown factor that Flames fans probably don't know what they've got in Tanev, so it's a wait and see. And hopeful for Markstrom. I think they have good reason to be hopeful, but we brought in goalies that were going to save the day before, and it didn't work out. Elliott was a big score for us, didn't work out.
See, and I'm with you. Okay, so once bitten, twice shy, or 20 times bitten, 100 times shy. So I get it. Here's my only concern, and you guys could afford to do this. Like, for us, we couldn't afford that Markstrom and Tanev were going to be $10.5 million per season. We couldn't afford that. Your team could. And I think you're going to get you're probably going to get the majority of that money in return on production. So that's good. That's where we were like, I'm sorry, our bottom six is so bad in contracts. We're totally strapped. Yeah. And so fans are freaking out and they're like, well, we shouldn't have signed Eriksson. Well, Edmonton shouldn't have signed Lucic, but they did, and you have to it is what it is. How do we fix it? Right. And one way we fix it is we had to lose quality players who fan base has loved. And I think this makes it really exciting for Calgary fans because you were in a better position financially to be able to land a couple impact players. Now, I know you're not getting Malkin's not coming to Calgary or whatever it is, but it's like, hey, he's good. He's good. Markstrom's good. I think you'll enjoy him. And I really hope, do you find that most Flame fans are kind of unsure and nervous at this stage, or is there a big hype over this? Like, how you feeling?
I'm just going by the online pulse because, I mean, unlike you, I'm an introvert. So if I go a whole week and talk to maybe 2 people, that's a lot for me. So I don't have my finger on the pulse of the city. I'm just going on by what I see online. And I think what I see online is a lot of people are really sore about losing TJ Brody. But a lot of people are really psyched about Markstrom. So I think to the average Flames fan, it's probably a toss-up. We'll see how it goes. But
I think you guys are a contender now.
But I think too, Calgary is still hurting from finishing first in the West and then tanking in the first round. I don't think that wound's healed. And until there's some solid playoff success, I mean, there was a start here in this round. I mean, we went out to a Cup finalist that played really well, and we didn't have Matthew Tkachuk, which could have been.
Yeah,
I mean, there was
he's
a number 1 goal
maker.
games
I don't
there
care what people say.
That would have been it.
Yeah.
So there's enough there to be, to be positive about. But what I want to see is what's this going to do for the Vancouver-Calgary rivalry, because how are the fans going to handle their star goalie showing up and trying to beat their team? I don't think it's going to be, hey, welcome back, we hope you do well. I think there's going to be boos. It's just going to steamroll.
I think there's going to be a lot of respect.
Yeah?
I think. They're not mad that Markstrom signed somewhere else. They're not mad that Tanev signed somewhere else. I think they're mad at our GM Benning.
Mm.
In fact, I was talking with Jeff about this. Hashtag Fire Benning was number 4 in Twitter as of Thanksgiving afternoon, before we traded for Schmidt.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really it seemed to me from hearing interviews now from Tanev to Foley and Markstrom that Vancouver wasn't as interested as they let on. They didn't have as many conversations with those guys because I think they were strapped cash-wise, and they're saying, we're going to offer this, and probably not. They're not going to take it. I'm just still shocked that other teams didn't go after Markstrom, or I thought Tanev was going to Pittsburgh because his brother was there. But, man, I can't believe you let him.
How many teams are strapped, though? Like, how many teams did not have the cap space to make the move that they wanted?
There's more than we want to admit, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And so this is where fan bases don't understand. They say, how come we don't have that guy? So or why didn't we pay that for that guy? It's like,
because you're paying it for this guy.
Yeah, exactly. And there is a factor as this player doesn't actually want to play for your team.
Yeah.
They don't want to come to Vancouver, or they don't want to come to Calgary or Edmonton.
That's the big unknown. I mean, when we moved Dougie Hamilton, I was a fan of that because anytime we have a big guy who doesn't play like a big guy, I'm like, check, please, I'm out of here. But you just get a sense like the guy doesn't want to be here. And sometimes that comes across in the on-ice performance. I mean, we're not in the dressing room. We don't know these things. Sports writers talk, and who knows what's true. But you get a sense of it. And then all of a sudden they show up at another team, and they're just like they've got a new lease on life. And the team that they left feels like we're better off without them. I mean, case in point, I don't know if you saw this, but you probably didn't. But it was during COVID. There's these, they do these home interviews on YouTube or whatever with the Flames players, wherever they are in the world, with the local media. And they were interviewing Rasmus Andersson, and they're talking about, hey, when James Neal went to Edmonton, usually when you see a buddy that you played with last year, center ice before the game starts, you chat a little bit, but there was none of that with Neal. And he goes, no. That was his reaction. So it's like, okay, he was not a popular guy in Calgary, but nobody knew until stuff like that comes out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you have a chemistry issue, and I'm big on this, that's cancer. You got to clean that up. If you don't have good chemistry in the dressing room, it doesn't matter the talent.
Wow. And that's what they're saying about Taylor Hall. They've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, man, I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Rob. It's been so good to catch up. Now, I do want to, a lot of our fans are watching this here, and they're going to be like, what is going on in the background? This is the coolest setup in the history of, and you built this. So I want you to tell us, you have one of the coolest jobs known to man. Please share with us what you do. Give us your YouTube channel and your website, the whole thing. Give us all.
In a nutshell, I've been a maker for years. I didn't know that was a thing, and so I quit my job in 2010 and started full time making lightsabers and other weird props. And this is my garage, which is my AKA man cave. This is where I work, and so I've tried to make it a creative space with sci-fi stuff and lighting and all that jazz. For further details, you can see my YouTube channel, where I think you just look up Rob Petka, and I'm on YouTube. Genesis Custom Sabers is my website, and you can find everything there. And try to send some followers your way too, and you can cross market, promote each other shamelessly.
Yeah, and like for people who have not seen any Rob's videos, you need to just watch his videos. Like, see the lightsabers he's making. In my opinion, they are the best in the world. Speaking of which,
One right here.
Seriously. It is so stinking cool.
And it's Canuck blue. I didn't
There you go. There you go. So you can order these online. They are amazing. And I'm pumped. Thanks so much for being a part of this. You're seriously a person I highly respect, miss dearly, and love that we could connect here on this platform.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I love to rant about hockey, so you just give me an opportunity, and I'll have an opinion about something.
All right, everyone. Well, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share this on your social media accounts. Flames fan reaction, Canucks fan reaction, and great to have everyone here.